All right, I'll call this meeting to order. Developing meaningful relationships with our Indigenous neighbors is a priority of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. As such, we are collaborating with First Nations governments and Indigenous organizations to develop a respectful and meaningful territorial acknowledgement. This work also presents an opportunity to learn more about the culture and history of Indigenous peoples in our region. Please be advised that today's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor Roper, second by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Motion carries. Petitions and delegations. Actually, before we get started, I know we've introduced most of the people in the room, but obviously you guys have met me, Todd Penny, acting mayor today. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, Danny.
Danny Souls.
John Roper.
Sure, good.
Neil Dobson with Hydrogen Naturally.
Erin LaVale, Deputy CAO. Jaylene McIver, Corporate Manager.
Hi, Brett Jackson, Hydrogen Naturally.
And Councillor Kyle Andrews.
Teresa Hansen, Deputy Corporate Manager.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, guys, I guess I'll give the floor to you guys.
Thank you for taking the time here today, both online and virtually and in person here. So much appreciated. I'm Brett Jackson. I'm president of Hydrogen Naturally. Here today with Neil Dobson, who's our Chief Sustainability Officer, and soon Scott Bax, our Chief Forestry Officer, will be joining us in a few minutes. Really today was to get to know Fort Nelson and understand what's happening in the community, see the facilities, see the areas that we'll be hopefully working within, getting to know the councillors here and the community. So this is the very beginning of a long-term project. So we're doing our homework and making sure we understand where we fit and what the community needs, and making sure we have a understanding from all parties, on the go forward. So, and that takes time and FaceTime and virtual FaceTime. So thanks again for joining. For the project itself, should have brought a presentation, or at least given you something that would have been something I could walk you through, but we can give you a verbal walkthrough on how it operates. So the idea is essentially we have looked at transitional energy. So our partners are formed from Peak Renewables, who has a presence here in the community, and a company called Northwest Capital. So Northwest Capital has come from the hydrogen and carbon capture and storage and sequestration world, where they were successfully built about $10 billion refinery in Alberta called Northwest Redwater Partnership. And that was is still today one of the largest blue hydrogen plants in operation with carbon storage and sequestration. And it was developed right from the beginning with that technology in mind. So sort of years ahead of when it has now become mainstream. So they've operated at scale. They've built and developed infrastructure that is now transitioning over into green technology. So it's that's where Peak came into the equation. So when Peak and Northwest were introduced, the idea of taking forestry fiber and making hydrogen and sequestering the CO2 from that process became reality. So Peak, I'm sure there's many of you have met with Peak before and understand their background, but significant experience in the forestry market and the fiber supply chain market, but also in the renewable side, getting into the pellets. So it was a good combination of experience in two fields that would have to coexist and work together, but also at scale. And we're looking to build our project around existing technology. This isn't a new science experiment. We say it's a proven technology, something that we've either used, operated, or we know exists, and we can integrate it into the design, and allows us to get to a scale that we can sequester at hopefully over the course of time at the gigaton level. So they're larger numbers, something that has a durable, sustainable market for pulling carbon from the air. So it's a form of natural direct air capture that we're using. So so it's tying back into the forestry market here locally, taking that residual fiber that's usually not used or hasn't been economical to bring out, and making that fiber into a pellet and gasifying that pellet, and where we can in a closed system sequester separate the hydrogen and the CO2, create pure CO2, which can be injected and stored, and then use the hydrogen for either blending into the natural gas stream or using for plant operations, and eventually for the fuel and transportation markets as time goes on. So so we're basically purely what we call bright green. So this is a carbon negative process. So I'm sure there's lots of discussion out there in news headlines about hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, net zero. Where we fall in that spectrum is blue hydrogen is considered hydrogen produced from natural gas. Green hydrogen gets into hydrogen that's made from renewable energy, usually using water and electrolysis to get to a carbon zero potential. We're using the trees, which already absorb the CO2 and essentially capture the CO2, and that energy is already being saved by the trees doing the work. So by us converting that over to hydrogen and CO2 and sequestering and storing the CO2, we get to a negative emission, or what we call a bright green hydrogen. So we're actually removing more carbon from the atmosphere than the process creates. So it's a term you'll hear us use quite a bit. So it's called carbon negative or emission negative fuel. So
Great. I'd wondered actually where you got to the bright green or the greener than green. So makes sense. I did get to see the presentation at the First Nation Major Projects Coalition. So it's too bad, actually. I don't know if you guys got to see that video. Maybe we can get a copy of that.
we can, yeah, if there's access to the online to it, is at the h2naturally.com site. You can, the videos available there too. Yeah.
I just want to recognize that we may have now have the real mayor is online. Mayor Gary Foster. Gary, were you here during the introductions and I just missed you because you weren't being seen?
I think so, but that's all right. I've met Mr. Bax, and it's good to see you guys in Northern Rockies here making your presentation. I'm down here at the Natural Gas and LNG Conference in Vancouver, and I ran into Mr. McCallum, who is the CEO of CryoPeak, and we got involved in a rather lengthy conversation about carbon sequestration in the Northern Rockies. I think maybe you're all familiar with the Quest field in Alberta, and Mr. McCallum was telling me that the fields in Fort Nelson are twice the size of Quest, so there's lots of opportunity to sequester CO2. He was also talking about, in the future, perhaps railing CO2 from down south and bringing it to Fort Nelson for sequestration as well. And I mentioned to him about adding hydrogen to the natural gas lines to make natural gas even greener than the fuel source that it is now, and he was very interested in that. Very interested in future rail opportunities in the Northern Rockies from mines in the Northwest Territories where they deliver liquefied natural gas from the local CryoPeak facility in Northern Rockies. And I thought this might go very well with Peak Renewables' ambitions in the future regarding rail. because those mines will also be bringing concentrate to the railhead. So it looks like the way things are heading here is there's going to be a lot of activity in the rail, which is good news for the Northern Rockies. Very interested in your project. You know, I think the future, when I go to the oil and gas conference, I think the short-term future of natural gas is pretty bright to displace coal from other countries like India and China, to get those countries off of coal and onto a cleaner fuel. And, you know, by 2050, we may find ourselves displacing natural gas the same way with hydrogen. So I think this is getting in on the ground floor, and I think this is a wonderful project for the Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mayor. So with your carbon, the plan would be to inject that then downhole? Oh, you turned it off and said off.
Sorry, correct, yes. No, we'll be looking for local injection, either within the plant site or within the formations that Mr. Foster is describing. There's been actually a fair amount of feasibility work done in Fort Nelson in the area, starting about 15 years ago, and then the test wells currently local to here. So it's proven out to be a good spot for that. So it'll be further stored.
Great. Anybody have any questions, or Councilor Andrews?
So what kind of hurdles are we looking at, you know, for between now and groundbreaking?
Yeah, see, first we looked at you know, the technology to get to fiber to gasification is covered. So, you know, in terms of the pellet side, through the gasification and the downstream components, even to the injection, to the compression injection technologies, that's known to us. I mean, there's still engineering to be done, but really where this project has its challenges will be working with the existing policies that are in place to try to fit a new biomass to carbon sequestration project into those. So we're looking at basically the recognition of the process as a direct air capture process. Right now, that's in the early infancy, you know, I guess we'd say early, Neil knows it best, but early stages of being identified or considered, you know, not fully recognized as that. So we have to get through the change in perception there. And then finding basically a use for hydrogen and the framework for the carbon sequestration. So on the carbon sequestration side, we're looking to try to fit within the existing regulations where we can. There are you know, obviously some CO2 work already being done in BC, so we're hoping that we can carry on with what that has brought to the province and within the regulations that are existing there. And then on the hydrogen side, that'll be the next one. We're still in the stages where we're trying to determine how much we would use within the plant operations and how much we'd have left for residual for market use, and then working with potential off-takers and utilities on how to blend that. So as much challenges as more, there's some new territory to get into. Many of these things have been done in other areas. So, you know, blending isn't a new technology, a new process. It just hasn't been done here yet. The carbon sequestration framework is well mapped in Alberta. It's coming along in BC, but it hasn't been officiated to the same level. So we just have to work through that. And I think over the next 3 to 4 years, as we get the project coming together to, you know, hopefully into the stages where we're looking at a plant and some physical assets going together, a lot of these policies will already be in place by then, and we'll have a path established there. So,
Well, so that gives us kind of a dream timeline, I guess, that would be looking, you know, minimum we'd be looking at 4 years.
yeah, really the key thing is the permits. We want to see basically when we get those permits in place, and we know there's going to be, you know, time obviously to get fabrication and construction underway. But in our current situation right now, senior leadership team is being assembled. We have the partnership formed between Peak Renewables and Northwest to form Hydrogen Naturally. And so we're functioning as a full operating company at this point. So our organizational chart's building out quickly. So we're underway. We're in the feasibility work on the engineering side now, and that will carry on throughout this year. So we're
Takes time.
yeah, it takes time, but we're moving on each target.
From this, the gist that I had was that this is almost greener than the regulations would be. So, but the regulations just don't match you, right? It's to get the government to understand that.
I think there's a little bit of that. So, excuse me, for context, my background, I say prior to joining Hydrogen Naturally, I spent 6 years with the province, and I was working on the climate and clean energy files. So that's why I've joined the team is I see this as exactly the type of project that will actually allow the types of things that the province and the globe is trying to do with carbon targets to actually come to fruition. But secondly, you know, the value proposition I had to the business was that I know that from the inside. So our policy and regulation work is really down two streams. The first is in the carbon market side, in terms of getting the value for the offtake products, you know, getting that value for the hydrogen or value for the carbon that we're sequestering through the regulations like low carbon fuel standards, the natural gas emissions cap that's coming from Fortis, the BC Hydro Clean Electricity Delivery Standard, the carbon pricing systems federally and provincially. All of these create potential value for a negative emission energy project. Then the other side of the policy and regulations work is actually, as you say, is the plant itself. So the way the province is thinking about hydrogen is over, you know, now to 2050, it will have a declining carbon intensity every year of the value that hydrogen has to hit. And over, you know, 10, 15 years, those blue hydrogen projects will start to age out. They won't be able to hit those carbon intensities. And we're starting below zero, right? So we have, as long as we could ever possibly need, we're a negative emission energy project from the get-go. But that hadn't necessarily been envisaged in the way they were developing things like the hydrogen strategies. And the way they were developing the CCS strategies. A lot of that has currently been designed around oil and gas. So it's designed around acid gas injection, not around carbon injection from a facility like ours, and maybe in some of the geographical areas, not in this part of the province. We're fine here because, you know, we have the test wells down the road. So yes, we have some work to do with them on some of those other regulatory pieces. But what our understanding is right now is, as Brett's already explained, every single piece of equipment we plan to put in the plant exists somewhere now on the ground in the province. So we don't actually think we should have too many problems in terms of getting built. But we have to go through all those processes and do all of that work naturally, and it takes time.
Councilor Roper.
Just wondering, once the plant is built, what would your workforce look like for labor, and what are some of the skills that prospective employees would need to gain in order to have employment at this facility?
Yeah, you know, within the processing plant itself, there'd be about 80 to 100 full-time positions, depending on the final scale, but that's the rough estimate at this point. And that we would want that to range actually from management level, executive level, through to full pellet plant operations and maintenance and all the support services. And that number's also, you know, attributed there to the all the support services that build up over time around that. It's not included in those numbers, but that's what we're really hoping to see is some community involvement and the spread out money flowing out into the restaurants and the retail and all of that. So that's and also jobs that are durable, that aren't tied necessarily to the lumber market, cyclical lumber market prices. This is hopefully steady state operation throughout that time. So
I just want to clarify. So 80 to 100, that would include the pellet plant operation.
yeah, roughly for the pellet plant and the hydrogen production side.
Okay. Mayor Foster?
So is Peak Renewables contemplating building the pellet plant first before the hydrogen plant?
I think that would probably come back to the potential for the pellets on a standalone basis also. So it's being considered as pellet plant operation in conjunction with the hydrogen. And so if that's the final format, then there's a good chance that that could come online first, especially if the rail is in place and that's I could see that potentially going ahead simply because that would be a smaller part of the scale of the construction and startup phase. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sobels, you have anything?
Well, just a question around the pellet plant and the relationship to the hydrogen plant in the sense, why do you have to take it to the stage of pellets to actually send it through your plant when you really need just a dry wood product?
Yeah, that's good. Great. That's a good question. We are actually looking at that's front and center actually on our engineering agenda right now. Is evaluating the basis of other wood chips or pellets for feedstock. There's merit for both, and from a pellet standpoint, it builds some flexibility into feedstock availability for the plant itself. And then also for the pellet side, it builds out a demand for the pellets to have a larger scale pellet plant that might have some economies of scale there, but again, have some availability to feed the plant or have an export basis. So there's it's a decision with several variables, several layers, yeah, and we're making sure we've got all the data in front of us on the early engineering decisions so that we can, and factors, we can put that together, but that's on the agenda.
I'll give you a couple of layers that you need to be considering as you go. One is that in our forest here, logs that'll make pellets have to, wood that will make pellets has to be in such a form that it can actually be delivered into a system where it turns it into chips and pellets and so on. There's a lot of residual in our forest that doesn't fit in the criteria. It doesn't fit as logs, but contains a tremendous amount of residual fiber.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. So that component, this is why I asked about the idea of converting everything to pellets first. It's actually the idea of bush chipping of residual is going to be a necessity. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback.
The volumes of our residual wood is very high, partially due to the species, like the fact that most of us here recognize what our mature aspen looks like. And you have a very, very solid, strong, tall log, and then you have arms and legs beyond, make octopus, put them to shame. Yeah, there's a lot up there that is not manageable from a log perspective, but has to be turned into chips on something. So,
yeah, there's value for that fiber. I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, those
very good points. Yeah, we'll be pulling all that together. So.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah. That's good.
Andrews?
And just to further Councillor Roper's question there about the education side, like I imagine there's going to be skilled workers that are going to be needed, and with the potential of this being 4 to 5 years out, what kind of pressure could we put on like the high school students and stuff for post-secondary? What sort of crossover education could we get to help ensure our local residents stay and have a fighting chance to work there?
Yeah, I think that's will be part of our job too, as we get through to getting ready for plant operations, to build out those requirements that we're going to need to fulfill, and then put them out to the services within the community to start to prepare for that, and align the needs of the plant with the programs that are in place here locally. And still to be determined on some levels. I mean, the pellet side is more determined. The hydrogen side will be looking at just different operations and doing that, because it's very valuable for retention in the community to do that early. We're not looking to bring people in as much as we like to employ within, but we do have a deep level of knowledge on plant operations within the group. Now, our chief technology officer has 30 to 40 years of through Shell of large scale plant operations, and of course they built and developed and operated Northwest Redwater Sturgeon Refinery. So significant experience on that front from even from the engineering and startup phases and solving the big problems that came with that to then running and operating it and optimizing. And so in that we have the leadership that's needed to figure out how to do this and operate it, and then our team within will start to fill out the needs that we're going to put out in the community. So definitely will be. We don't have a firm answer on exactly what those programs will be, but it has to be before the plant's ready to start. It has to be in there several years ahead to give everybody a chance to run up to that.
And just building on that, Brett, as well, I mean, I think one of the attractive natures of this region is the amount of fiber that's here. So even if that's not day one, this plant can survive 30, 40 years. Like with negative emission hydrogen, we have a long run in terms of the energy market, plenty of fiber. So generationally by generationally, that can certainly build as well.
Mhm. Well, we're always looking for reasons to have our local Northern Lights College expand their programming. So if we can give them a solid case of jobs that will be here in 4 or 5 years, then we've got a baseline to start programming. So the sooner you guys kind of get an idea of what you're going to look for, we'd be more than happy to bring it forward. Councilor Anderson?
And then just another question is, like, do you guys have like potential milestones or like, I don't know, small wins, I guess, so to speak, throughout the way before then that that we could look for identifiers that we're moving in a good forward progression?
Yeah, no, it's we do. We're within this year for sure. We want to have the direction locked in from the regulatory side, and where we can sequester or at least within the current regulations and policies where we fit, and what we need to do to ensure that we have access to sequestration without any kind of restraints. That's critical for this year. Also getting into what we're going to do with the hydrogen. We need to have these pathways all determined, because that will lead up to the ability to finance and to raise capital for the project. And also too, we need to within this year and into next, make sure that we've done a good job at proving that this is a project that can be built here at this scale and has all the attributes that we think it'll have. That takes time, and so if we can get to that within 12 months, then everybody, I think, is in the right direction, and the rest of the project will run smoothly.
Awesome. Councilor Pessoas?
Yeah, I have another question just to give a little context there. I recall in the early days of the forest industry, as some of us have been here since time immemorial almost. And I remember the number of burners, burners at the sawmills. And we had beehive burners. There was 3 of them that were operating cherry red for quite a few years. After they kind of moved away, we ended up with some Conus heaters and so on to do a better job of burning, have a lot less emissions and a lot less particulate matter in the air. And then along comes an OSB plant, piggybacking on the fact we had an old fabulous old perfect site already set up, and we built an OSB plant that had emissions issues as we were going along. Yeah. So I think of new industries and the location and where the sites are from an emissions point of view too, and say what type of emissions would we be anticipating in the world of hydrogen production. I know that the process of pelletizing is a very low emissions system because it's essentially drying. Thankfully, wood has its own binder in it, so you don't have to be doing a bunch of gluing and putting glue particulate into the air and so on. So how about the hydrogen extraction process?
Actually one of the key things with that is when you come back to the uses of the hydrogen we're evaluating, that will really be one of our components that we're looking at right now. If we power the plant off of energy that we produce with the hydrogen or use the hydrogen within the boiler side or the process side, it becomes incredibly green. And so one of our goals will be to try to get recognition for that use of that hydrogen, and make sure that we would be offsetting what would be conventionally conventionally a natural gas process. So that would be, to answer the question, hopefully we are ultra green on the emission side for what typically would be there. And the other component too would be also, water and the drying side. How do we recover the water, use some or portion of back into the plant processes. So, well, as we get further along, we can be more specifics on what the emission side will look like. But our intent anyways is try to use the fuel that we create to do that.
Yeah, one of the tools we have to be able to do that is in their reduction plans. Fortis has the ability to actually essentially displace usage. So rather than coming onto the natural gas system, if we used our own hydrogen, we could sell them the environmental attributes, and it's as if they're blending that into the entire system. So, it's that allows us to essentially sell the hydrogen to Fortis, but actually use it ourselves inside our system and keep the emissions in town here down.
Great. Well, sounds promising. Did you have anything else, or do you want to go over?
I had a question for yourselves,
Okay.
and that is did you have a preferred use essentially for the hydrogen? There's a BC Hydro plant in town here using natural gas. There's obviously a natural gas system circulating around the homes. Is there anything in the community's current plan that would actually drive us one direction or another in how we might choose to use the products we're creating?
Go ahead. Councillor Sauce.
I think that I don't think that we as a community have a specific plan based around the potential of hydrogen, simply because it hasn't been a part of the discussion to this point. We are glad though to be in the context, at least I am glad as a councillor, to be in the context of where we're looking seriously with our neighbors at geothermal, seriously at pellet as a fuel, simply because the greenness of pellets they're also very green if you use them locally. They're less green if you put them on a train and haul them to the ocean and on a ship and then back on a train and then somewhere else. And then on the other side of the globe, they're less green that way. But still, the idea of having the green energy, I find it fascinating to be in a scenario where we have many, many layers of energy potential in this area, right from heavy oil, light oil, natural gas, and the liquids within, the condes within. And here we have also the ability to work into the greener side of energy production. I think this is the very best place to utilize those types of energy in that context, because it lets everyone see that even with the whole variety of options that we actually have the desire to actually go on as green as we can, and make it scalable. So I'd love to see our electric energy generated by hydrogen. I mean, look at it's just down the road. There's a pipe. It's pretty simple.
Okay, Mayor Foster.
So just a comment about the regulations here surrounding hydrogen. I know Minister Ralston has spoken many times on his enthusiasm for hydrogen. So I think this is a tailwind for your plans here. I think this is, as Councillor Souls has said, this region is rich in all sorts of different kinds of energy, and going forward here, I think we're going to need all of them. I think there's a huge opportunity to add hydrogen to the natural gas pipelines that are leaving Fort Nelson. And I think this is a ready customer for your hydrogen that you produce. So I think this is the best spot to be putting in your project, and wish you luck with it.
I'd just like to add, yes, where I'd like to see the hydrogen. If there was some way that this hydrogen could either generate our power or generate our heat in our homes, but it get plumbed into Fortis, and somehow we make sure that everybody knows how green this is, and possibly our carbon tax on our home heating could go down in the Northern Rockies, because I don't think a lot of people south of Prince George really realize how much it costs us to heat our homes. So if there's some way that we can offset that, it would be great. Did you have something else, Councillor?
Basically along the same lines, like it's not something I remember sitting around the council table and us talking about, but the direction our council seems to always go is trying to advance and trying to be greener and cleaner. So if there's any way we can help put pressure on BC Hydro and Fortis BC, I'm sure we would be there side by side saying, we want this greener in our community. Like, how great would it be for marketing our tourism that you come to Fort Nelson and we're all running on, what did you call it? Very green, or, you know,
Bright green.
we're in a bright green community. Like, that could be a hook on its own for tourism and stuff. So like being able to advance and maybe be ahead of it, I don't see a council or even very many members of our community who would be against that. Like, we definitely like to reach out and venture out. We've been trying, like at one point we were trying to have a biodiesel facility and the whole community was behind it. Like, we really like growth up here. So I don't think you'll see much opposition to that.
Mr. Roper.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think the potential for hydrogen is limitless. I think every single industry can benefit from it. Agriculture, oil and gas, you name it. So I think, you know, it's kind of like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. I think if we have this resource available to us in large quantities, we'll find ways to use it and use it best. So I'm just really excited to be a part of this.
No. Thank you. Yeah, for the comments. It's and you know, if we feel obviously an obligation to make sure that we move as, you know, quickly and efficiently as possible with this, you know, coming into the community, and we're seeing the enthusiasm behind it. We want to make sure that it's backed by good data and good planning as we go through, and it definitely makes it a lot easier, you know, having the support locally, and the excitement keeps us motivated. And we saw Fort Nelson as a fantastic spot. We've had good relations with the First Nations, and Chief Gale has been very supportive to get into the exploratory stage. And we have the time spent with Peak Renewables on the pellet proposals that went through before the hydrogen became another layer to that project here. So no, very much appreciated that reception. And you'll see a lot more of us as we get through here. We're always, like Neil pointed out, we have some alignment to do, I guess, with different parts that will make the project feasible. But we see so far, even as of recently, on the clean fuel standards starting to move in the direction that supports this project. And so when we look at challenges ahead there, we haven't seen anything that's a roadblock, other than just we have to find that path and get it laid down, and we'll communicate with the community on and council here is where we're at, how we're progressing, and make sure everybody's in the story with us, I guess, as we go along. So
Did you?
I'm just interested to see how a proposition like ours fits within the broader kind of economic development objectives of council and the other sorts of projects that, you know, people have in mind that they're coming to talk to you about. Whether there was anything to share with us there that would help or hinder, just help us know the lay of the land.
I can't think of any hindrance off the top of my head that would be here. I mean, just the whole community, I believe, is we want to see, you know, we want to see growth in our community. We want to see things happen, but we obviously are very cognizant of the environment. So having something green coming in here is a huge bonus. Councillor Soles?
I think that we, as far as, of course, for context, we've been looking for someone that is interested in doing something here for quite some time. And given that the forest industry was a good natural starting point for us, that was the attraction that Peak brought a great deal of attraction to that. And the fact that there's potential in the future, when we've been stalled for many, many years. We've been stalled as a forest community in a province where forestry's been going gangbusters for 10 years, and we're stalled. And so we've been looking for that. And so because this ties in together with forest industry and it actually finding end use for large scale residual in an aging forest is a key to unlock all the other values of a forest from a forest harvesting perspective. So I see it as a good fit. I also think that we will be seeing a renewed push for natural gas. Once LNG becomes an export reality from our province, I do think we will see significant gas operations here again. We'll be talking to companies about that, and very likely this is that will create a window for hydrogen to be a component of a larger scale narrative rather than just a local one. So I see all the pieces, like when I earlier commented about being an energy intensive area with multiple layers. Know for sure that when the demand for that energy becomes acute, then we will see a lot of pressure for it. It's just the way the world works. So.
Great. Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, just more along the same lines, what Councillor Souls is saying, like Fort Nelson was established years ago and forestry was a huge part of it. And then from then on, it's been energy. We haven't had forestry in a very long time. And the energy market hasn't been growing for a very long time in Fort Nelson. So anything we can see as potential growth, we're hopeful for and we're happy to see. So like as far as other things that might get in your way at the moment, there's not a whole lot of other things going on directly in Fort Nelson. So I think you've got pretty much a clean slate at the moment.
Mayor Foster?
I'm going to have Mr. McCallum reach out to Mr. Nicolisha because I think he's Mr. McCallum of Cryo Peak. I think he's got a wealth of knowledge about just the sort of things that your company is interested in. Down here at the BC Oil and Gas Conference, I'm hearing nothing but good news about natural gas throughout North America. And I think we're going to start to see more activity in our area, exploration and production of natural gas. And I understand that maybe Woodside is back talking to Chevron about their LNG project on the coast, which is another project that is years off. But because of the war in Ukraine and Russia, the world has changed here in the last 3 months. And I think this is a long-term change that we're going to see lots of need for energy coming out of places like the Northern Rockies. And I think hydrogen has got a big role to play in that. I think a ready-made customer is Fortis in Fort Nelson. There's a limit here to how much hydrogen you can put into natural gas, I know, but I think it is a solution or it is a customer for your company and their end product. And I also think that pellets are another solution to getting countries off of coal. So I think this is nothing but good news for the Northern Rockies.
Great, thank you. And we have a newcomer.
Yes, apologies. Apologies for being late.
Yep, just push it and let it go. Watch for the red light. There you go. You're live.
You're not trained me yet. Apologies for being late. Scott Bax. I'm the CEO of Peak Renewables and also the VP of Forestry for Hydrogen Naturally. Excited to be back up here as last up here in May and just to continue on the conversation. And just again, apologies for being late and joining midstream.
Great. I know you, Scott, you weren't here at the beginning here, but I don't know if you had any kind of update or anything you want to give us on Peak Renewables on that side at all, or you figure we got it covered?
Okay. So yeah, on the Peak Renewable side, there's a couple pieces I think that's great to update the group on. We are working, I would say, diligently on the plan to relocate the OSB equipment. We continue to make some progress there, and I would say we're targeting somewhere mid to late summer to begin that removal, and that's going to be a big first step for us. and, getting some employees in town and seeing that equipment relocate, which is, the site of which Hydrogen Natural is going to use, and also the potential site of, any of the other peak renewable projects. So I'd say that's the biggest part of the update. Where our intent is to, to be regular participants in the community. And so you'll see, myself, some of the peak team here, I would say, weekly, monthly, as we begin to kind of increase our level of activity.
Great. Thank you.
We saved some snow for you.
Any,
No, you didn't need to do that.
we felt obligated. Is there any more questions from? Yeah. Is there anything else you guys, you think you got it all out there?
I believe so. I think the last I want to thank everybody for taking this time. It's we're some of us are newer to the community. Peak's obviously been engaged for quite some time now, and we're just hoping that we can get to the same level they have. I think that's vital. We've been through Brian Fair's work and Scott and Dave Nicolation. We've been able to see the acceptance and the collaboration that's taken part there. And it was one of obviously the key reasons that Northwest Capital and Hydrogen Naturally came together. So, thank you for doing that. That was an important step for us. And so as we get going, we openly look for engagement, community engagement and contact. We want to be able to give everybody a chance to see the project, understand it. And we'll be providing some chances with open houses as we get along that we'll schedule and make that available.
Sounds great. I did miss a couple of introductions over here in our gallery there. Miss Lisa Dobson and Mr. Mike Gilbert. I don't know if you guys have any questions while you're sitting over there. No, you're good.
Too frequently in the past, we've been told that you're always going to be at a disadvantage because of physical distance from market. And that's particularly when we look at forest products and commodities like pellets and such. We're attempting to take our location and turn it from a disadvantage to an advantage with an initiative that we've got called Look North. And we've done some preliminary work, had some discussions with people in Yukon, narrowing it to Yukon time being, just to identify areas where we can help them and they can help us in terms of developing the market, because our proximity to that market gives us an advantage. Mayor Foster's talked about cryo-peak. Cryo-peak is a perfect model of how that works. That their competition has to haul their product at the same input costs. They have to add to that an exaggerated transportation cost. If we can take our physical location, we can own markets. So we can be a supplier of a whole bunch of things, Yukon, NWT, and even into Alaska. So that's preliminary, but we've identified some areas that merit further investigation. And those very definitely because we have government commitments to the north that are really quite aggressive. And they'll be difficult to beat without alternative sources. Right now, the biggest alternative source, the cleaner source, is trucked LNG. But as things develop, pellets can come in mix, hydrogen mix, and we'll never have effectively solar in to a large extent to displace energy generation. Therefore, we go with what we've got. And because we can aggregate them from NWT we can become that service and take advantage. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, you bet. All right. I mean, we always appreciate, I mean, the fact you guys make the trip up here to sit down with us. We greatly appreciate it. So nice to see faces again the last few weeks, kind of getting back to, I went for my first conference a couple of weeks ago and it was, I know it's getting old and everybody is saying that, but it is so nice to be able to look at each other face to face and have these discussions. So very glad you guys made the trip up here and look forward to hearing updates along the way as you hit some milestones. So if there's nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roper, second, Councilor Andrews, all those in favor? And the meeting is adjourned.